I died choking on cheap office coffee while my boss took credit for my biggest deal. The last thing I saw was Richard Chen's face on my computer screen, the client I'd spent 18 months cultivating, the account worth $47 million, signing the contract. My commission would have been life-changing, $350,000. My boss, Sharon Vance, was already mentally spending half of it. Then my throat closed, the coffee cup slipped, and everything went black. I woke up 5 years earlier, gasping for air in my cramped studio apartment, the morning sun slicing through my cheap blinds at the exact angle I'd forgotten existed. My phone showed the date, March 15th, 2019, the day I started at Vance & Associates. My hands shook as I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, 28 years old again. The dark circles under my eyes were lighter. The stress lines around my mouth hadn't set in yet. I looked hopeful. I'd forgotten what hope looked like on my face. The memories crashed over me in waves. 5 years of Sharon stealing my commissions. 5 years of team splits that somehow always favored her 70-30. 5 years of her parading my clients at industry events while I sat in the back invisible. 5 years of watching her buy a beach house, a Tesla, a boat, all funded by my work. And Richard Chen. God, Richard Chen. I'd met him at a tech conference in Austin back when his company was just 15 people in a converted warehouse. I'd seen something in his vision for AI-powered logistics software that everyone else dismissed as too niche. I'd spent months understanding his business, introducing him to venture capitalists in my network, helping him refine his pitch deck. When his company exploded to a $200 million valuation, I'd been there. When he needed a strategic marketing partner, I'd been there. When he finally had the budget for a major campaign, I'd been ready with the perfect proposal. Sharon had quits, made me split the commission 50-50, said it was company policy for accounts over a certain threshold. Never mind that I'd brought in every single account over that threshold and she'd never split commissions on her own deals. I'd been too afraid to fight, too conditioned to accept scraps. Not this time. I showed up to Vance & Associates 30 minutes early, just like I had the first time. Sharon was already in her corner office, door open, surveying her domain. She looked younger too, 42 instead of 47. Her blonde highlights less aggressive, her designer wardrobe slightly less ostentatious. She smiled when she saw me. "Melissa, welcome to the team. Come in, let's chat." I sat in the same chair I'd sat in before, heard the same speech about collaborative culture and shared success, watched her eyes calculate exactly how useful I could be. "I have a good feeling about you," Sharon said, leaning back in her leather chair. "You've got that hungry look. That's what we need here, people willing to do whatever it takes." Whatever it takes. Like working 80-hour weeks while she took 3-hour lunches. Like building relationships from scratch while she swooped in at the signing to supervise. Like accepting poverty wages plus commission. Commission she'd find creative ways to split. "I'm excited to learn from you," I said, and meant it differently than before. This time, I was studying my enemy. The first 3 months, I played it exactly the same. Worked my ass off on small accounts. Proved I could close deals. Built trust with Sharon, let her think I was grateful for every crumb of praise she tossed my way. But in my off hours, I was planning. The tech conference in Austin was in June. I had 90 days to prepare. And this time, I knew exactly what Richard Chen needed. Not just in his business, but in his life. In my first timeline, I'd approached Richard professionally, pitched him on our marketing services. It had worked, eventually, but it had taken 18 months of slow relationship building. This time, I had something better than a pitch. I had the memory of Richard telling me, 3 years into our partnership, about the moment that changed everything for his company. A chance encounter with a venture capitalist named David Moreno at a tech conference. Moreno had introduced Richard to the right people, opened the right doors. Richard had called it the luckiest break of his career. Except it hadn't been luck. David Moreno had been looking for exactly Richard's type of company. He just hadn't known Richard existed yet. I knew when and where David Moreno would be at that conference. I knew which panel he'd be speaking on, which hotel bar he'd visit afterward, what drink he'd order. And I knew I could make that introduction happen earlier. But first, I needed to understand Richard better than I had before. I spent my evenings researching his background, his education, his early career. I found his old blog posts about supply chain optimization, his comments on industry forums, his LinkedIn connections. I found his mother's obituary from 2017. In my first life, I'd never known about her. Richard had mentioned his mom once or twice, always in present tense. I'd assumed she was still alive. She'd died of early onset Alzheimer's when Richard was 30. He'd been her primary caregiver for 2 years while building his company. It had nearly broken him financially and emotionally, and I knew, from fragments of conversations in my first timeline, that Richard was terrified of forgetting her, of losing the memories of who she'd been before the disease. I spent $200 I didn't have on a specialized genealogy service, tracked down old photos of Richard's mother from her college yearbook, her early career as a chemical engineer, her volunteer work at a women's coding boot camp in the 90s. I compiled them into a simple digital album, no marketing pitch, no company logo, just a collection of her professional life, the achievements Richard had mentioned wanting to preserve. Then I waited. Sharon kept me busy with grunt work, cold calls, data entry, the occasional client meeting where I did all the prep work and she took all the credit. I smiled through it, took notes on her tactics, learned which lies she told most frequently. "You're doing great," she told me in May, right before the Austin conference. "Really proving yourself. I think you're ready for something bigger." "Thank you," I said. "I'm grateful for the opportunity." She nodded, already distracted by her phone. "There's a tech conference in Austin next month. I'm sending you to work our booth. Good networking opportunity for you." In my first timeline, I'd been thrilled. A chance to attend a major conference, to meet real prospects. This time, I knew she was sending me because she didn't want to waste her own time on a booth that might not generate immediate revenue. She'd show up on the second day for the VIP sessions, then leave early. "I'll make the most of it," I said. Sharon smirked. "I know you will." June arrived. Austin was a blast furnace, the heat shimmering off the pavement outside the convention center. I wore the same navy blazer I'd worn before, but this time I'd tailored it properly. Spent $80 on alterations that made me look competent instead of desperate. I worked the booth on day one, just like before. Collected business cards, gave quick pitches, smiled until my face hurt. But I was watching the schedule, tracking movements. Richard Chen arrived at 2:47 p.m. I remembered because I'd checked my watch, wondering if he'd show. He looked different than I remembered. Younger, obviously, but also more uncertain. His company was still small, still unproven. He didn't have the confidence that would come with success yet. He walked past our booth twice before I called out, "Excuse me, Richard?" He stopped, surprised someone knew his name. "Melissa?" "Park," I said, extending my hand. "I've been following Quantum Flow Logistics. Your approach to AI-powered supply chain optimization is brilliant." His eyebrows rose. "You've actually read our white papers?" "The one on predictive inventory management? I've read it 3 times. The implications for reducing waste and perishable goods distribution alone could revolutionize the food industry." Richard's whole face changed. Someone understood his work. Someone saw what he was building. We talked for 20 minutes. I asked smart questions, the kind I'd learned to ask after years of working with him. I didn't pitch, didn't mention marketing services, just engaged with his ideas like they mattered, because they did. "I'm actually giving a talk tomorrow on our latest algorithms," Richard said, pulling out his phone to check the time. "It's at 10 a.m. in the Startup Pavilion. If you're interested, I'll be there," I said. He smiled, a real smile, not the polite networking smile he'd been wearing all day. "Great. I'd love to continue this conversation." After he left, I checked my own phone. Sharon had texted, "Leaving early. You can handle the booth tomorrow. Don't waste time on small companies." Perfect. I attended Richard's talk the next morning. The room was half empty. Most conference attendees chased the famous speakers, the established companies. Richard presented to maybe 30 people, his slides dense with data, his passion obvious. I took notes, asked a question during the Q&A that highlighted the most innovative aspect of his algorithm. Afterward, I approached him. "That was incredible. The way you're using machine learning to predict not just demand but supply chain disruptions, I haven't seen anyone else connecting those dots." Thank you, Richard said, and I could see the relief in his eyes. Relief that someone got it, that his work wasn't being ignored. I hope this isn't too forward, I said, but I was planning to grab coffee with someone this afternoon, a venture capitalist named David Moreno. He's specifically interested in logistics tech. Would you like to join us? Richard's eyes widened. David Moreno from Catalyst Ventures? The same. I heard him speak on a panel this morning and reached out. He seemed interested in connecting with people working on supply chain innovation. I watched Richard process this, a junior marketing associate casually grabbing coffee with a top-tier VC. It should have seemed suspicious. But I'd done my homework. I'd attended David Moreno's panel on emerging tech. I'd approached him afterward with a smart question about his investment thesis. I'd mentioned casually that I was having coffee with a promising logistics AI founder later and would love his perspective. David had raised an eyebrow. Logistics AI, who's the founder? Richard Chen, Quantum Flow Logistics. David had pulled out his phone, made a note. I'll swing by if I have time. That had been enough. In my timeline, David and Richard would meet by accident at a hotel bar. This time, I was orchestrating it. I'd love to join, Richard said, but I don't want to impose. You're not. Honestly, it would be great to have you there. David's technical questions are way above my expertise. We met David at a coffee shop 2 blocks from the convention center. I made introductions, then let the two of them talk. Watched Richard's nervousness fade as David asked increasingly interested questions. Watched David's body language shift from polite to engaged. I excused myself after 30 minutes. I should get back to the conference. Richard, David, it was great connecting with both of you. Richard stood. Wait, I didn't get your card. I handed him one. Plain white cardstock, my name and email, nothing from Vance and Associates. Let's stay in touch, Richard said. I'd like that. I walked away before David could ask too many questions about what a marketing associate was doing. Facilitating VC introductions. Let them wonder. Let them be impressed. That night, Richard sent me an email. Thanks for today. David's meeting with our team next week. This could change everything for us. I wrote back, you're going to do amazing things. I'm just glad I got to witness it early. Then I attached the digital album of his mother's photos. I hope this isn't overstepping. I found these while researching women in STEM for a personal project. When I saw your mother's name, I thought you might like to have them. She was remarkable. I hit send before I could second guess myself. Richard called me 20 minutes later. I could hear tears in his voice. How did you find these? Genealogy database. Old yearbooks. It took some digging, but I thought you'd want them. Silence, then, my mom died 2 years ago. Alzheimer's. I've been terrified of forgetting her, of losing the memories of who she really was before the disease. I know, I said quietly. I'm so sorry. These photos, I've never seen some of these. Her at that coding boot camp. I didn't know she taught programming. She was a pioneer. Thank you, Richard said. I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to, just build something that would make her proud. Another silence. Can I take you to dinner when you're back in San Francisco? I'd love that. I hung up and stared at my phone. In my first timeline, Richard and I had been friendly, professional. We'd gotten drinks a few times, talked business, built a working relationship. This felt different. This felt like the beginning of something real. Sharon called me the next day, irritated that I'd left the booth early. I fed her a line about a client emergency, let her yell, apologized appropriately. She had no idea what I'd just set in motion. Richard and I had dinner the following week, a nice Italian place in North Beach, the kind of restaurant I couldn't afford, but he insisted on paying for. We didn't talk about business. We talked about his mother, about grief, about ambition and fear, and the terror of failing at something you've poured your whole self into. Quantum flow is everything to me, Richard said, swirling his wine. If this doesn't work, it's going to work. You sound so sure. I am. I've seen your vision. I've seen the work. You're solving a real problem in an elegant way. The market will catch up. Richard studied me across the table. Why are you so invested in this, in me? I could have lied. Could have said something about believing in innovation, about supporting entrepreneurs. Instead, I said, because I know what it's like to pour everything into something and have people not see it. To be invisible while someone else takes credit for your work. Understanding flickered in his eyes. Your boss. My boss. You're too talented to work for someone like that. For now I am, I said. But not forever. Richard raised his glass. To not forever. I clinked my glass against his. To not forever. Over the next 3 months, Quantum Flow exploded. David Moreno's introduction led to a meeting with a major logistics company. That meeting led to a pilot program. The pilot program led to a massive contract. Richard called me every week with updates, asked my opinion on marketing strategies, on hiring decisions, on which VCs to talk to next. I gave him good advice. Better advice than I'd given the first time because I knew exactly what worked. But I never pitched him on Vance & Associates. Sharon noticed me taking personal calls during work hours, started asking questions. Who's Richard Chen? A contact from the Austin conference. What company? Quantum Flow Logistics. They're small right now, but growing fast. Sharon's eyes sharpened. How small? 15 employees, but they just landed a major contract. You should bring them in, set up a meeting. I don't think they're ready for a marketing partner. Yet. Sharon's smile went cold. Melissa, if you have a hot lead, you bring it to the company. That's how this works. Of course, I said. I'll reach out. I didn't reach out. Instead, I waited. Quantum Flow closed a Series A round in September. $8 million. Richard sent me a bottle of champagne with a note. We couldn't have done this without you. Sharon saw the champagne on my desk. From Richard Chen? Yes. Why is he sending you gifts? We're friends. Friends. Sharon's voice dripped skepticism. Melissa, if you're developing a relationship with a prospect, that's great. But you need to loop in the senior team. This is a company account, not your personal network. He's not a prospect. Everything is a prospect. Everyone you meet at conferences, every call you take, every connection you make, it belongs to Vance & Associates. You signed a non-compete when you started here. Or did you forget? I hadn't forgotten. The non-compete stated that any clients I brought in during my employment belonged to the company, that I couldn't solicit them if I left, but Richard wasn't my client, not yet. I understand, I said. Sharon leaned against my cubicle wall. Good, because I'd hate for there to be confusion about who owns this relationship. Set up a meeting with Richard. I'll join you. We'll pitch him together. Together. That's what I said. I smiled blandly. Of course. That night, I called Richard. Sharon wants to pitch you on marketing services. Do you want to pitch me? No. Then why would I take the meeting? Because I need you to, I said. I need you to see exactly who she is. And I need her to think she has a chance. Richard was quiet for a moment. What are you planning? Trust me? With my life. The meeting happened 2 weeks later. Sharon spent the entire week prepping, pulling together case studies, designing a custom pitch deck. She was salivating over the potential commission. Watched her work. Remembered every tactic she was using. Remembered because she'd used them all before on this exact client in another timeline. We met Richard at his office. Quantum Flow had moved into a proper space in Soma, modern and bright, with exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows. Richard's team had grown to 30 people. The energy was electric. Sharon turned on the charm immediately. Richard, thank you so much for meeting with us. Melissa has told me wonderful things about your company. Richard shook her hand politely. Melissa speaks highly of you too. I'd never spoken about Sharon to Richard, except to say she was my boss. But Sharon preened anyway. The pitch was flawless. Sharon had built her career on being a closer. She knew how to read a room, how to emphasize ROI, how to make a prospect feel like partnering with Vance and Associates was the smartest decision they could make. I sat quietly, taking notes, playing the role of eager junior associate. Richard listened attentively, asked good questions, appeared interested. At the end, Sharon went in for the close. I think we could do incredible work together. Melissa would be your primary day-to-day contact, of course, but I'd oversee the strategy personally. We could start with a 6-month engagement, scale from there. What would the commission structure look like? Richard asked. For Melissa specifically? Sharon blinked. I'm sorry? Melissa's the reason I'm taking this meeting. She's the one who understood my business when everyone else thought we were too niche. If I'm going to work with your company, I want to make sure she's properly compensated. Sharon's smile tightened. We have a standard commission structure. All our associates are well compensated for their contributions. I'm sure, but I'd like specifics. What percentage would Melissa receive? That's internal company policy. Then make it external, Richard said pleasantly. I'm a big believer in transparency. If we're going to have a partnership, I want to know how you value the people doing the work. I kept my face neutral, but inside I was singing. Sharon recovered smoothly. Of course, Melissa would receive 30% of the commission on your account. 30%. Richard leaned back in his chair. And you'd receive? As the senior partner overseeing the strategy, I'd receive 70%. For work Melissa would be doing. For work we'd both be doing. Partnership is collaborative, Richard. Surely you understand that. I do, Richard said. Which is why I split equity evenly with my co-founders, because collaborative work deserves collaborative reward. Sharon's smile was frozen now. This is how our company operates. Melissa is being mentored, learning from my expertise. The split reflects that. I see, Richard stood. Thank you for coming in. I'll think about it and get back to you. Sharon stood too, sensing the meeting slipping away. Richard, I hope we can, I said I'll think about it. We left. Sharon was silent until we got to the car, then she exploded. What the hell was that? Did you tell him about our commission structure? No. Then why did he ask? Why did he care? Maybe because he's a decent person who values fair compensation? Sharon whipped around to glare at me. This is exactly why junior associates don't handle major accounts. You made this about you instead of about the client. You poisoned the relationship with your insecurity. I didn't say anything. You didn't have to. He could tell you were bitter about the split. Jesus Christ, Melissa. Do you know what you just cost us? I stared at her, at the genuine rage on her face, rage that I might have endangered her payday. I'm sorry, I said. Sorry doesn't close deals. Sharon started the car, jerking into traffic. You're off the account. I'll handle Richard Chen personally from now on. Okay. And we're going to have a serious conversation about your attitude. This entitled Greedy Behavior, it's not going to fly. I watched the city blur past the window, let Sharon's words wash over me. In my first timeline, this was the moment I'd crumbled. When Sharon had accused me of being ungrateful, of not understanding how business worked, I'd apologized and accepted whatever scraps she threw me, not this time. Richard called me that evening. Did I overplay that? It was perfect. Your boss is a piece of work. She's about to get worse. She's cutting me out of the account completely. Good, Richard said, because I'm not working with her. Richard, Quantum Flow needs a marketing partner, but we need someone who actually understands our mission. Someone who's been there from the beginning. Someone I trust. My heart hammered. You need an agency, not a freelancer. Do I, or do I need the right person? I'm still employed by Vance and Associates. The non-compete doesn't cover you. Starting your own company and me choosing to hire you. You didn't solicit me. I'm making this choice. I closed my eyes. This was the moment, the decision point. In my first timeline, I'd stayed at Vance & Associates for 5 years. Let Sharon exploit me. Let fear keep me small. I'd need capital, I said, to set up a proper agency, to hire staff, how much? Richard, I can't take your money. It's not charity. It's an investment. Quantum Flow invests in our partners. We could structure it as a business loan or equity or whatever makes you comfortable. But Melissa, I've watched you work. I've seen how you think. You're wasted at that company. I'm scared, I admitted. Good. Being scared means it matters. Do it anyway. I thought about Sharon's face when she'd called me greedy. Thought about 5 years of stolen commissions and stolen credit and stolen life. Okay, I said. Let's do it. I gave my 2 weeks' notice the next morning. Sharon called me into her office immediately. You're leaving? Yes. Did you get another job? I'm starting my own consulting practice. Her eyes narrowed. Consulting? In marketing? Yes. You know you're bound by a non-compete. Any clients you've interacted with through Vance & Associates are off limits. I'm aware. That includes Richard Chen. I haven't signed any papers with Richard Chen. Yet. Sharon leaned forward. You think you're clever. You think you can steal my client and get away with it. Your client? I kept my voice levels hum. You met Richard once. For 1 hour, I introduced you. At a conference you attended on company time using company resources. I attended that conference because you didn't want to waste your time working a booth. I met Richard on my own. Built that relationship on my own. You were representing Vance & Associates. I gave him my personal card, no company logo, no company email. Sharon's face flushed. That's a technicality. That's a fact. Richard Chen is not your client. He's my friend. And if he chooses to hire me after I leave, that's his decision, not solicitation. I will sue you into the ground. Then sue me. But you'll lose. And in the process of discovery, we'll need to pull all your commission records. Show exactly how you've been splitting fees with junior associates. Want the industry to see those numbers? Sharon went very still. I leaned forward. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to finish my 2 weeks. I'm going to transition my current clients professionally, and then I'm going to leave. If you try to enforce a non-compete that doesn't actually apply, I'll fight it, and I'll win because I've been documenting everything. Documenting every split commission, every client you've taken credit for, every time you've violated your own company policies to line your pockets. 3 years of emails, messages, records. Want to test me? I didn't have 3 years of records yet. I'd only been at the company 6 months. But Sharon didn't know that. She believed it because she knew it was true. Get out of my office, Sharon said. I stood. Pleasure working with you, Sharon. My 2 weeks were tense. Sharon avoided me. The other associates whispered. I kept my head down, finished my projects, and counted the days. On my last day, I packed my desk, said goodbye to the few coworkers who'd been decent. Walked out of Vance & Associates for the final time. I felt lighter than I had in years. Richard had arranged everything, a business loan through Quantum Flow's bank, enough to cover 6 months of operating costs, a small office space in the same building as his company, introductions to his lawyer, his accountant, his network. You're investing a lot in me, I said as we signed the loan papers. I'm investing in someone who invested in me first, Richard said. When one was nobody, when my company was 15 people in a dream, you saw something worth believing in. I'm returning the favor. I named my company Park Strategies. Simple, clean, mine. Quantum Flow was my first client, a 6-month contract renewable at market rates. The commission was 100% mine. I hired 2 junior associates within a month, paid them fairly, split commissions 70-30, with them getting the 70. They worked like demons because they were valued. Word spread. If you wanted marketing for a tech company, if you wanted someone who understood the product and not just the pitch, you called Park Strategies. 6 months in, I had 8 clients. A year in, I had 15. 2 years in, I was turning people away. Sharon tried to poach my clients twice, sent sleazy emails implying I was inexperienced, unstable, not to be trusted. Both times, my clients forwarded me the emails and asked if I wanted them to respond. I told them not to bother. Sharon wasn't worth the energy. But Quantum Flow became something extraordinary. The Series A led to a Series B, 25 million. The Series B led to a Series C, 60 million. Richard's vision for AI-powered logistics wasn't niche anymore. It was revolutionary, and I was there for all of it. Richard and I had dinner once a month, our tradition from that first meeting. Sometimes we talked business. Sometimes we talked about his mom, my family, our fears and hopes. Sometimes we just talked. "I need to tell you something," Richard said one night, 3 years into our partnership. We were at the same Italian restaurant, the place that had become our spot. Okay. David Moreno asked me how we met, the real story. I set down my wine glass. What did you tell him? The truth, that you approached me at a conference when my company was nothing, that you connected me with him before I'd earned it, that you gave me pictures of my mom that you had no reason to have found. And he said it was either the smartest networking move he'd ever seen or you're slightly psychic. I laughed. Which does he think? He thinks you're brilliant. He wants to invest in Park Strategies. My laughter died. What? He sees what I see. You don't just market companies, Melissa. You understand them. You find the story that matters. And in tech, that's everything. Richard, I can't. Take investor money? Why not? You're growing. You're turning away clients. You could scale. I like being small. You like being in control? Richard corrected gently. I get it, but you could be both. Stay in control and scale. That's what good investors do. They support your vision, not dictate it. I thought about Sharon, about being small and powerless, about someone else controlling my commissions, my credits, my future. I need to think about it. Of course. No pressure. But Melissa? Richard's expression went serious. You saved my company. You saved me. Let me help you do the same thing you're clearly terrified someone will do to you. What's that? Succeed beyond your own expectations. I met with David Moreno 2 weeks later. He offered $2 million for 20% equity in Park Strategies. I countered with $2 million for 15% with a clause that I maintained final decision-making authority on all major business decisions. He agreed. Park Strategies grew, 8 employees, then 12, then 20. We moved into a full floor of office space, modern and bright, with exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows. I promoted my first 2 associates to partners, split equity with them because collaborative work deserves collaborative reward. Quantum Flow went public in year 4. Their IPO was one of the most successful tech offerings of the year. Richard Chen became a very wealthy man, and Park Strategies had been there for every stage of that growth. Our commission from the IPO marketing campaign was substantial, 7 figures substantial. I gave my team massive bonuses, bought myself a nice apartment, put the rest in savings. I didn't need a beach house or a Tesla or a boat. I needed to sleep at night knowing I'd built something real. Sharon sent me an email the day of Quantum Flow's IPO. Congratulations on the Quantum Flow success. I always knew Richard had potential. Good to see my instincts were right. I deleted it without responding. 2 months later, Sharon's name appeared in a trade publication article about marketing agencies losing market share to boutique consultancies. Vance & Associates was struggling. Several senior partners had left. Clients were jumping ship. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not vindication, nothing. She was irrelevant now, but the universe wasn't done with Sharon yet. Year 5, Quantum Flow was expanding internationally. They needed a major rebrand, a new marketing strategy for their European launch. It was our biggest project yet, $8 million contract over 2 years. Richard insisted on a celebratory dinner, not our usual spot, somewhere new. He was nervous, which was unusual for him. "Are you okay?" I asked as we sat down. "I'm great. I have news." "Good news?" "The best news. We're acquiring a smaller marketing firm to help with the European expansion. They have experience in the markets we're targeting." "That's great. Why didn't you mention it earlier?" "Because the firm we're acquiring is Vance and Associates." I set down my menu very carefully. "What?" "Sharon's been trying to sell for 6 months. The company's underwater. She made some bad investments, lost some major clients. She's desperate. And you're buying it. Quantum Flow is, for pennies on the dollar. Sharon will stay on for a transition period, then leave with a small payout. Richard, she'll be working for us. Technically reporting to you, since Park Strategies is managing the integration." I stared at him. "You're joking." "I'm not. Is this too much? I can back out." "No." I started laughing, couldn't stop. "No, this is perfect." "You're sure?" "I'm sure. Because this wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about justice. About Sharon finally facing the consequences of her own greed and short-sightedness. I'd risen by being better, by building something that mattered, by treating people fairly. She'd fallen by being exactly who she'd always been. The acquisition closed 6 weeks later. I attended the first transition meeting as Park Strategies representative. Sharon walked in, saw me at the head of the table, and went pale. "Hello, Sharon," I said pleasantly. "Thank you for joining us. Let's talk about how we're going to integrate your client list into our systems." She sat, opened her laptop, looked 10 years older than she had when I'd worked for her. "I've reviewed your commission structures," I continued. "They're going to need significant revision to align with Quantum Flow's values and Park Strategies standards." "What kind of revision?" Sharon's voice was tight. "Fair splits, transparent accounting, equitable compensation for the people actually doing the work." That's not how you did it. It's how we do it." Sharon's hands clenched on the table. "This is my company." "Was your company. Now it's part of a larger ecosystem. And that ecosystem has standards." I slid a document across the table. "This outlines the new commission structure, the new client management protocols, and the new expectations for senior partners. Read it over. We'll meet again next week to discuss implementation." Sharon took the document with shaking hands. "Oh, and Sharon?" I waited until she looked up. "Welcome to the team. I think you're going to learn a lot." The transition took 3 months. Sharon fought every change, complained to Richard, to David, to anyone who would listen. No one cared. Her former clients were reassigned to Park Strategies associates who actually did the work. Her inflated commission splits were eliminated. Her corner office was converted into a conference room. She submitted her resignation on day 91. I accepted it immediately. "I hope you find what you're looking for," I said at our final meeting. Sharon looked at me with something like hatred. "You think you've won." "I don't think about you at all anymore," I said honestly. "But I hope you find a situation where your skills are better utilized." She left without another word. I heard later that she'd joined a mid-tier marketing firm in Phoenix. Took a significant pay cut. Lost her beach house, her Tesla, her boat. I felt bad for her for about 30 seconds. Then I went back to work. Year 7. Park Strategies had 40 employees. We'd expanded into product marketing, brand strategy, executive coaching. We were profitable, growing, and I still maintained majority control. Richard and I still had our monthly dinners, though now they were often interrupted by his wife, a brilliant data scientist he'd met during the Series B, fundraising, and occasionally by my boyfriend, a copyright lawyer who found my origin story hilarious. So you died and came back to life just to get revenge on your terrible boss? He'd asked when I told him the story. I'd framed it as a thought experiment, what would you do if you could do it over conversation. Not just for revenge, I'd said, for justice and for myself. And you got both. I did. Quantum Flow's valuation hit $2 billion in year 8. Richard was on the cover of Forbes. The article mentioned Park Strategies as one of Quantum Flow's key partners. I was quoted, "Great companies aren't built by individual genius. They're built by teams of people who believe in the vision and are empowered to execute it." Someone sent the article to Sharon. I don't know who, I didn't care. I was having dinner with Richard and his wife talking about their new baby when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Hello? Melissa Park? Woman's voice, professional. Yes? This is Jennifer Wu from Stanford Business School. I'm calling about the guest lecture series we discussed. I'd forgotten I'd agreed to speak to an entrepreneurship class about building a marketing consultancy from scratch. Yes, of course. When did you need me? March 15th, if that works. I know it's short notice. March 15th. The day I'd started at Vance & Associates, both times. The day everything had changed. That works perfectly, I said. I gave the lecture on a sunny Tuesday morning. Talked about finding your edge, about knowing your worth, about building something that aligned with your values. The students asked good questions about funding, about competition, about work-life balance. One student raised her hand. What would you say to someone who's working for a boss that takes credit for their work? I smiled. Document everything. Know your worth. And when the time is right, build something they can't take from you. After the lecture, the professor walked me to my car. That was inspiring, she said. The students loved you. Thank you. Can I ask, was the question about the bad boss from experience? I thought about Sharon, about dying while she took credit for my biggest deal, about being reborn with the knowledge to change everything. Yes, I said, but it taught me something important. What's that? That the best revenge is building something so successful that your enemies become irrelevant. I drove back to the office where my team was waiting to debrief the latest campaign, where my name was on the door and my vision guided the company, where I was free. I'd died once, choking on cheap coffee while someone else stole my success. I'd lived twice and built an empire on my own terms. Sharon had wanted to split my commission to keep me small and grateful and exploitable. Instead, she'd given me the motivation to become someone she could never touch. The client had gone exclusively with me, and I'd never looked back.
Is it this one that you want now? Dreamer. Really appreciate the way you read messages exactly how I'm sending them in my head. I got you. Wait, this one, dear? Yes. Wait, 666 is technically an angel number because Lucifer was indeed once one of the heavenly hosts. This is true. Okay, Vinny. Thank you. How much for the toothbrush one? I love the toothbrush. You like it? I love it. It'll probably be when. Cat skills. Cat skills. Wheel, you're gonna love Allison's stream. Gonna grab some dinner and look, do it! Thank you for being here. I love that, Allison. $1 million. Red Fox. Thank you for the follow. Welcome in. I buy toothbrush one now. Wow. Are you gonna do giclée? Oh, for prints? I will do prints. Yes, I will make prints of them. Little pretty moments like that. Yeah. Yes, Dreamer. That's what this one, I was literally just in the shower and the light was coming in And it was so beautiful. It was like catching little dewdrops, catching little droplets on my toothbrush. And I was like, this is pretty. And I was like, I want to paint that. Lurk as I fall asleep. Please no whispers to influence my dreams to turn weird.